threats about not bringing the House back in August to keep the flame lit on gun violence?
No, absolutely not. We did our job. The Senate was supposed to come back. Why don't you all get that straight?
Okay.
The Senate did not come back to pass the bill. I'm getting very angry about the silliness of these questions. Lives are at stake. Senator McConnell is standing in the way. We passed our bill in February. Members had events all over the country to ask him to bring up the bill. Don't ask me what we haven't done. We have done it. And if you are annoyed with my impatience, it's because people are dying, because Senator McConnell hasn't acted. Why don't you go ask him if he has any regrets for all the people who died because he hasn't acted?
This is House Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi giving what can only be called a perfect response after a reporter asked a question that was either glaringly misguided or in bad faith. And that's because in the face of a slew of mass shootings in this country, the only reason no action is being taken is because of one body, the Senate, and one person in particular, Mitch McConnell. And that's because whereas the House passed H.R. 8, the Bipartisan Universal Background Checks Act of 2019 in February, McConnell has refused to bring it to the floor for 7 months. Even in the aftermath of 2 horrific mass shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio, McConnell rejected calls to reconvene the Senate to do anything in the face of such endless carnage.
You're not calling people back in early to address this gun legislation.
Well, if we did that, we'd just have people scoring points and nothing would happen. There has to be a bipartisan discussion here of what we can agree on.
And this is the Republican Party's entire playbook. A mass shooting occurs, Republicans offer thoughts and prayers but demand that we not talk about gun reforms while the families mourn, lest we get accused of politicizing a tragedy, and then they wait it out until finally the nation's attention is focused elsewhere. And they repeat this over and over and over and over. Even Trump has shown just how disingenuous he is about actually finding solutions, touting his support for stronger background checks immediately after the shootings, only to walk back that support sometimes on the exact same day that he voiced it.
There's nobody more pro-Second Amendment than Donald Trump. But I don't want guns in the hands of a lunatic or a maniac. And I think if we do proper background checks, we can prevent that. People don't realize we have very strong background checks right now. You go in to buy a gun, you have to sign up. There are a lot of background checks that have been approved over the years. But just remember this, big mental problem, and we do have a lot of background checks right now.
And the answer for this is obvious and publicly available: money. Gun lobbies fund Republicans at an exponentially higher rate than Democrats, especially considering that funding for the left is virtually non-existent now. In fact, the top 20 recipients of funding from the gun lobby are all Republicans, with donations reaching into nearly the $1 million range per candidate in just one election cycle. And it's all for moments like this, when, despite a staggering 94% of Americans who've now come out in support of background checks, we're still getting the runaround from Republicans. And they know that if they can just wait out the clock, the political pressure will eventually disappear, and they can go back to doing nothing and collecting their checks from those who profit from gun sales. And by the way, this is why eliminating the filibuster is absolutely necessary. While it had previously served the purpose of making sure that the political party in the minority wasn't completely shut out of the legislative process by a party that could theoretically just have one more senator than the other, the Republicans have completely abused it, using the 60-vote threshold to ensure that zero legislation is passed. And the reason is simple. Republicans don't want anything to change. It's the Democrats who want to pass legislation on healthcare, on climate change, on gun safety reforms, on election security, on expanding voting rights. But Republicans are desperate to make sure no meaningful reforms are ever enacted. They want to keep the status quo so they can continue raking in contributions from fossil fuel companies and the gun lobby and health insurance companies. If nothing gets done, they win. It's as simple as that. Which is why it's not only essential to win the Senate in 2020, but that the filibuster be eliminated so this country can finally see meaningful reforms enacted, instead of treating the chamber as a burial ground for legislation in the right's desperation to not change anything. And by the way, this is by design. Mitch McConnell has bragged in public that no legislation will make it to the floor, even going so far as to call himself the Grim Reaper of the Senate.
Let me tell you this. If I'm still the majority leader of the Senate, think of me as the Grim Reaper. None of that stuff is going to pass. None of it.
But with about 100 people dying to gun violence every single day in this country, with bills like H.R. 8 languishing in the Senate, it seems that by calling himself the Grim Reaper, McConnell meant it literally.